Hi everyone, this is Mr. Zhang, and today we'll be going over the math homework for Class P. This is for session U31. For number one, the question says, what is another expression for 8 less than the quotient of x and 3? So here you want to turn the word sentence to a number sentence. So first thing you have to do is to find the quotient, and quotient means divide. So you have to do x divided by 3. And then the next part is less than, and less than you have to subtract 8. Remember, for less than statements, you have to switch the order. So for example, 3 less than 5 is really 5 minus 3, not 3 minus 5. So here the answer will be B. Next, for number 2, each of Phil's buckets has a capacity of 11 gallons. Each of Mark's buckets can hold 8 gallons. How much more water in gallons can 7 of Phil's buckets hold than 7 of Mark's buckets? So you know that each bucket holds 11 versus 8. So if you do 11 minus 8, you get 3 gallons, and that's how much more Phil's bucket can hold. So here you have 7 of each. So because Phil's bucket, each of them will hold 3 more than Mark, you can do 7 times 3, and that'll give you 21 gallons. So that's choice C. Next, for number 3, which of the following is not equal to a whole number? So you just have to go through all the choices and see which one's equal to a fraction. So for A, you get 66 minus 36, or 30 over 3, which is 10. So that's a whole number, so that's not the answer. For B, you can factor out 6 from both parts of the numerator, which will give you 11 plus 6. And once you divide by 6, you get 17. For C, if you factor out the 6, you get 6 times 11 plus 6 over 12. And in this case, you get 17 over 2, because the 6 into 12 has a factor of 6, which cancels out. And this is 8.5, which is not a whole number, so the answer is probably going to be C. I'll just go through all the choices just in case. For D, you have 30 over 15, which is 2. And for E, if you factor out the 6, you get 6 times 17 over 17, which is just equal to 6. So the answer is choice C, because you have a decimal. Next, for number 4, Dick has $15.25 and spends $7.50 at the sporting goods store. How much money does he have left? So have left means subtract. So I want to do $15.25. You want to subtract $7.50. Just make sure you line up the decimals. So to borrow here, and you get $7.75. Now make sure to put the decimal aligned, and in the final answer, I'll give you choice D. Next, for number 5, given 4 cubed plus 4 cubed plus 4 cubed plus 4 cubed divided by 4 to the y is equal to 4, and you want to find y. So here, when you add the same thing multiple times, you can subtract. So because you add 4 cubed 4 times, this really turns into 4 times 4 cubed. And then you can use this law of exponent that states b to the a times b to the c is equal to b to the a plus c. When you multiply two exponents with the same base, you can add the exponents here, a plus c. So the numerator becomes 4 times 4 cubed, and this 4 is really 4 to the first power. And this becomes 4 raised to the 1 plus 3, or 4 to the 4th power. The denominator is still 4 to the y. And you know that this is equal to 4. Now from here, you can use this other law of exponent that states b to the a divided by b to the c to go to b to the a minus c. When you divide two exponents to the same base, you can subtract the exponents. In this case, you can subtract 4 raised to the 4 minus y is equal to 4 raised to the first power. And that means that the numerator's 4 minus y has to be or the exponents rather, 4 minus y has to be equal to 1, which means that y is equal to 3. So you get choice A. Again, for this question, you have to use the two laws of exponents to manipulate the original equation, and then you can isolate or put everything in base of 4. So make sure all the bases are the same numbers, and then you can find the value of y. Next, for number 11, the ratio of 3 1/3 hours to 11 hours is equal to. So here the keyword is ratio. Ratio means you can use a colon or just a fraction. 3 1/3 to 11 looks like this, but choices don't look like that. So what you want to do is to simplify this fraction. And it helps if you write it in numerator and denominator form, and then you want to make sure the numerator has this mixed number is written in an improper fraction. So to turn 3 1/3 into improper, you have to multiply 3 by the whole by the denominator and then add the numerator. So it's be 3 times 3 plus 1, or 10, and the denominator stays the same. So this is really 10 over 3 divided by 11. And from here, you can multiply the numerator and the denominator by 3 over 3. And that will give you 10 in the numerator and 33 in the denominator. And that's choice D. You can also do keep, change, flip. When you do 10 over 3 divided by 11, when you KCF, this turns into 10 over 3 times 1 over 11, or 10 over 33. Get the same answer either way. Next, for number 7, if 5x is equal to 3, then 5x plus 3 in parentheses squared will be equal to. So you can do a substitution here. Since 5x is equal to 3, you can replace 5x with 3, which will give you 3 plus 3 in parentheses squared, or 9 squared, or rather 6 squared, or 36. And that's choice D. Next, for number 8, if 3AC, or 3 times AC, is equal to BC in the figure above, what are the coordinates of B? So you don't know what the coordinates of point A are. They're just x to y. Now, you know that point C is on the y-axis, which means that its x has to be 0, because the y-axis has all the points on the y-axis has an x value of 0, and the y value will be the same. So point C will be 0, comma y. So this length, AC, is really just x, because it's from 0 to x. So if 3 times AC is equal to BC, that means that BC, this length here, will be 3 times AC. And AC, call that x, so BC will be 3 times x. So to figure out the coordinates of B, which has an x value that is 3 times bigger, but it's in quadrant 2. And in quadrant 2, x's are negative, while y's are positive. So the x will be negative 3x, and the y will actually be the same, because they're all on the same horizontal line, which has same y values. So in this case, all the y values are the same, but the x values are going to be different, and that would be choice D. Point B will have an x value that is 3 times, or negative 3 times rather, bigger than x. Next, for number 9, in the figure above, the measure of angle ABC is 110 degrees, and that AC is equal to CD. What's the value of 2y? So the first thing to do is to figure out that Here you have an isosceles triangle because AC is equal to CD, which means that the opposite angles, x and y, have to be equal. So in an isosceles triangle, you have the two base angles are equal. And the two base angles here are x and y. Now from here, you know that 110 is actually called an exterior angle of this triangle. And there's a formula that states that the exterior angle C is equal to the sum of A and B. And that's because you can use this point or this angle here that connects both of the triangle and the straight line together. If I call this angle D, A plus B plus D is equal to 180 degrees. But 180 is also equal to C plus D because they are supplementary. So that means that A plus B plus D is equal to C plus D. And here we subtract D from both sides. You get that C, the exterior angle, is equal to A plus B. That's always true. So in this case, you know that 110 is equal to x plus y, but x and y are the same. So that means that x is equal to y is equal to half of 110, or 55. Now, 55 is not the answer because we want 2 times y, so that's 2 times 55, which will be 110, which is choice D. And here is the summary for this page. Next, for number 10, x plus y in parentheses squared is equal to 9. What is x plus y? So here you have x plus y being squared, and that's equal to 9. So you can do the square root on both sides. That tells that x plus y is equal to the square root of 9. Or it can also be equal to negative square root of 9, because you can also have negative 3. Remember, negative 3 squared is equal to 9, and 3 squared is equal to 9. So in this case, this exponent of 2, which is called a degree, this equation has a degree of 2, which means there are 2 potential answers. So the answer could be 3, but it could also be negative 3, and we can't tell. So that's why the answer is E. So be careful with this one. You also have the negative answer here. Again, that's because of this degree of 2. Once you have an exponent of 2, you can potentially have 2 answers at most. Next, for number 11, the average arithmetic mean of 5 numbers is 34. If 3 of the numbers are 28, 30, and 32, what's the sum of the other 2? The key word here is average, and average means a total sum divided by the number of data. And in this case, the average of 5 numbers would be the total of those 5 numbers divided by 5, and this is equal to 34. So to find the total of these 5 numbers, you can multiply by 5 on both sides. And that gives 170 as the total. Now, 3 of the numbers are 28, 30, and 32. So if you add these numbers up, you get 90, which means that the 2 other numbers will be 110 subtracted by, or 170 rather, subtracted by 90, which will give you 80, the sum of the other 2 numbers. And that's going to be choice E. So here the key is to use the definition of average, which is the total sum divided by the number of data, to set up the equation here, and then solve for the total, which then you can use to subtract the number that you have to figure out the sum of the remaining numbers. Next, for number 12, in the figure above, rectangle AEGL has been divided into 8 congruent squares. If the perimeter of one of these squares is 16, what's the value of AE plus MF, LG, AL, BK, CJ, DH, and EG? So here, this whole rectangle has been divided into 8 equal squares, and the perimeter of one of these squares is 16. So the keyword here is perimeter, and this is the distance around a shape. And for a square, because all sides are equal, the perimeter is equal to 4 times the side, or 4s. So you can set 4s equal to 16. Once you divide by 4, you get that the side is equal to 4. That means that each of these sides will have a length of 4. So you want to add AE plus MF plus LG. So that's going to be 16, 16, 16. Then you have AL, BK, CJ, TH, and EG, and each of those are equal to 8. So this would be 8 times 5, or another 40. This would be 48 plus 40, or 88. And that's choice C. Next, number 13, for any positive integer x, the symbol of x is equal to x squared divided by 3, and the square of x is equal to 9 over x. What's the expression for circle x times square x? So these two are known as functions. And a function is just an input-output machine. So that means you just have to follow the rules here. For circle x, this first one, this would be x squared over 3. And then the second function is 9 over x. And what you're doing is you're just multiplying them. And when you multiply these two together, you get 9x squared divided by 3x. And here you have, that since x is positive, you can cross cancel one of the x's. It's really 9 times x in the numerator. The denominator is 3 times x. So one of the x's will cancel out. It's just a positive number here. And then the 9 and 3 cross cancels to have 3 and 1. So we have left over is just 3x. And that's choice A. Next, for number 14, if each of the 3 distinct points A, B, and C are the same distance from point D, which of the following could be true? So you have to go through all the choices here and see which of the following can be true. So it's not a must question, it's a could question. So one thing to keep in mind, A, B, and C are all the same distance from point D. So A, B, C, and D are the 4 vertices of a square. So if you draw a square, call them A, B, C, and D. Here, you see that that's impossible because B and C would be the same distance to D, but A to D is this diagonal, and this diagonal is longer than the side. When you split a square down the diagonal, you have a 45, 45, 90 right triangle, which has a diagonal distance of x root 2. So 1 can't be true, so you eliminate A and E because they have 1 in it. Next one, number 2, A, B, C, and D line the circumference of a circle. So you want to draw a circle here, and you want to put the points so that they're all equal to point D. So if you pick 2 points, A and B, 2 of them can be the same distance to point D, but another third point, let's say C, will be further away from D. There's no way where you can put a third point so that it's the same distance, because this is a flat shape, not a sphere. So if it's under circumference, choice 2 is wrong, which eliminates B and D, which leaves the answer as choice C. And now choice C is the only one that's correct, because you can have a perfect circle in which the center is D, and A, B, and C are all on circumference, which means the distance to the center is just the radius. And this radial distance is always equal. So 3 is the only one that works, and that's why the answer is choice C. And for 14, you have to just draw the scenarios for each of these situations. And the key word here is distinct, which means different or unique. So points A, B, and C are unique points. They can't be on top of one another. Next, for number 15, if x plus by is equal to 3x plus y is equal to 5 and y is equal to 2, then b is equal to, so here you can do a substitution. You know y is equal to 2, so replace y here with number 2. You get 3x plus 2 is equal to 5. And from here you can solve for x. You subtract 2 on both sides, just using inverse operations. You get 3x is equal to 3. Then you divide by 3, you get x is equal to 1. Now once you know that x is equal to 1, you can substitute both of these in here. And you end up with x plus by is equal to 5, because this whole thing is equal to 5 as well. And x is equal to 1, so 1 plus b times 2 is equal to 5, or 1 plus 2b is equal to 5. Here, if you subtract 1 both sides, you get that 2b is equal to 4. And if you divide by 2, you get that b is equal to 2. And that's choice C. Next, for number 16, there are 2 boys and 3 girls in each class, or in the class. The ratio of boys to girls in this class is equal to all the following except. So here you have 2 boys to 3 girls in a class, and then you want boys to girls. It has to be in a ratio of 2 to 3. So if you have 4 to 6, if you divide by 2, you get 2 to 3. For B, if you simplify this ratio, if you divide by 3, which is the common factor, you get 3 to 4, which is wrong. So the answer is probably B. So we're going to want that to accept. C, 6 to 9, if you divide by 3, you get 2 to 3. 12 to 18, if you divide by 6, you get 2 to 3. And here, if you divide by 9 for choice E, 18 to 27 turns into 2 to 3 as well. Only choice B gives you a ratio that is different from the original. Next, for number 17, at a certain small town, P gallons of gasoline are needed per month for each car in town. At this rate, if there are R cars in town, how long in months will Q gallons last? So here, you need P gallons per month for each car. So 1 car, you need P gallons in 1 month. Now, in this case, you have R cars in town. So if you have R cars, they'll need R times more gasoline. So that will be PR more gallons of gasoline. And this is still for a month. And you can only multiply one variable at a time. So 1 month for R cars, you need P times R gallons of gasoline. Now, if you have Q gallons altogether, this is your total. And you know that 1 month, these cars require PR gallons. To figure out how long they'll take, you can divide Q gallons by PR. By PR gallons a month, which is your rate. And this will give you the time it will last. And gallons cancels out. The denominator of the denominator goes into numerator. So the answer will be Q divided by PR months. this is how you solve this problem, just using proportions or unit rates. You can also solve this question by substituting random numbers for P, Q, and R. Just make sure that you, if you do end up using that method of guessing and checking, you have to keep substituting in all the choices until you have just one choice left over, and then that will be the answer. If you have two choices that give you the same answer because you used really nice numbers, you'll have to just come up with a new set of numbers to test it out. And here's the summary for this page. Next, for number 18, what fraction of 1 week is 24 minutes? So this is of problem. Of represents the whole, and is represents the part. So the fraction is just part over whole, and that's 24 minutes divided by 1 week. Now you have to convert 1 week into minutes. So now 1 week is equal to 7 days. You know that 1 day is equal to 24 hours. So you have to do 24 times 7. You get 168 hours in a week. You know that 1 hour is equal to 60 minutes. So you have to do 168 times 60, and you could just multiply by 6 here. This would be 1,000 or 10,080 hours. And then you have to do 24 minutes divided by 1080, or 10,080 minutes. And now from here you can actually just estimate, because this is about 25 divided by 10,000. So if you divide by 25, you get 1 over 400. And choice C is the closest. So again, this is just a is over of or part over whole. You can also leave it unsimplified and then cross simplify at the end, because the numerator will just be 24. The denominator is really 7 days times 24 hours times 60 minutes. So the 24 actually cancels out, and this gives you 1 over 420, because 7 times 60 is 420. So that's definitely a lot easier. You can cross simplify. All right, 19 and 20 refers to the following definition. The L length of a segment from point A to point B is B minus A. So what's the L length from -3 to +3? So this is from point A to B. What you want to do is use a formula, B minus A. That's tells you to do 3 minus -3, or 3 plus 3, which is 6. Choice E. Next one, number 20. Of all segments beginning at -4 and ending at one of the integers indicated in the number line, which segment has the least L length? So the L length is the second point minus the first point. So here, this point is at -4. So the L length is going to be V minus 4, or U minus 4, T minus 4, S, or minus -4, rather, or R minus -4. If you want to minimize this, because you're adding 4 in each of these, you want to pick the number that is the smallest. And R is the smallest, because you want to minimize this. R is the smallest value. So the smallest number, R minus -4, or R plus 4, will be the smallest. And so choice A. V would be the largest, because this is V minus -4 or V plus 4. And V is much greater than R. So, V is the largest, so V plus 4 will also be the largest as well. So here you want choice A, because you want the smallest. Next for number 21, the sum of 5 consecutive positive integers is w. In terms of w, which of the following represents the sum of the next 5 consecutive positive integers? So 5 consecutive integers. Consecutive means numbers that are right next to each other. And here you don't know what they are, but you can just call them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to make it easy. Here w would be the sum, or 6 plus 6 plus 3, or 15. Now the next 5 numbers will be 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. And if you add them up, this would be 16 plus 8, or 40. So here from 15 to 40, this would be w plus 25, and that's choice D. And it will always be w plus 25 because each of these numbers here from 1 to 6, 2 to 7, 3 to 8, 4 to 9, and 5 to 10 are 5 greater. So you're really just adding 5 plus 5 plus 5 plus 5 plus 5, or 25. That's why it's always w plus. This 25 here. Next for number 22. The sum of, or if the area of the square is twice the area of the triangle, and BC is equal to 100, then find A squared. So here you have the area of the square. For a square, all sides are equal. So the area of the square is equal to A squared. That's what you want to find, coincidentally. Now the area of the square is 2 times the area of a triangle. This area of a triangle is 1/2 base times height. So in this case, it's 1/2 B times C. Now BC is equal to 100. So you know that B times C is 100. Half of 100 will be 50. So the area of the triangle is equal to 50. Now the square is twice that. So you take 50 and then you just double it. And the area of the square will be 100. So that's choice C, because you want A squared, and A squared is going to be 100. Because that's twice the area of the triangle. And area of a triangle is equal to 50. Next, for number 23, you have the figure, and this figure is not drawn to scale. In the figure above, AB and CD are diameters of the circle whose center is O. The radius of the circle is 2 inches, and the sum of the lengths of the arcs AD and BC is 3 pi. Then y is equal to. So here the radius of the circle is 2, and we have arc length. And arc length is just a piece of the circumference. And for a circle, the important part is that everything is proportional. So it's just really part of our whole. Here, the central angle, which you can call theta. Theta over 360 degrees is equal to the length here, which you can call A for arc length. A divided by the circumference, which is 2 pi r. Is equal to the area, which is called the sector area, which is this entire slice of beta, divided by the area of the circle, which is pi r squared. So here, everything is super proportional in a circle. In this case, we have the radius of 2, and the circumference is 2 pi r, or 2 times pi times 2, or 4 pi. So the arc lengths, AD and BC, plus BC, these two pieces, is 3 pi. So that 3 pi out of the total circumference, which is 4 pi, is equal to 3/4. So the ratio of the angles, in this case these two angles here, will also be 3/4 of 360. And you cross cancel that, 90 times 3 is 270 degrees. So that means that the leftover angles, which is y, plus the bottom angle, which is also equal to y, because opposite angles are equal, y plus y, the top and bottom angles, will have to be equal to 90 degrees, the leftovers. So each y would only be equal to 45. That's how you got choice A. Again, you use the fact that everything for a circle is proportional in terms of part over whole. So this is the angle, the arc length, as well as the area. Because everything is proportional, you can just use part over whole to find the central angle for the left and the right pieces, which will be half of 270, which is at 135. And then y would be 45 degrees to fill in the 360. Next to number 24. 5 years ago, Ross was n times as old as Amanda was. If Amanda is now 19 years old, how old is Ross now in terms of n? So to do these age problems, you want to organize your data in a chart. So you don't know how old they are now, but or Ross is now, but Amanda is now 19 years old. 5 years ago, you have to subtract 5. Amanda would have been 14. And you don't know how old Ross is, so Ross will be r minus 5. But 5 years ago, this r minus 5 is equal to n times 14. So 14 times n is equal to r minus 5. So you want to figure out the value of r, how old Ross is now. This is your variable of interest. And we'll put that in terms of n. So you can do that by just adding 5 to both sides. You get the r is equal to 14n plus 5. And that's choice B. And to do these age problems, it's really important to organize the information in a chart. You can also use random numbers and just follow that along, if possible. Next to number 25, the figure above shows water in the tank whose base is 2 feet by 6 feet. A rectangular solid whose dimensions are 1 foot by 1 foot by 2 feet is totally immersed in the water. How many inches will the water rise? So in this case, you have the volume of this water is going to increase if you submerge this block. That's 1 by 1 by 2. So the volume here is length times width times height, or 1 times 1 times 2, which is equal to 2 cubic feet. Now this 2 cubic feet will cause the water to be displaced, and the water is going to rise. So the water is going to rise by just a couple inches. And when it rises a couple inches, this increase in the amount of water will actually be this little sliver, which we don't know what the height is. So we can call that x. 2 times 6 times this height, because you have this little sliver of water. That has to be equal to this 2 cubic feet. So 12x is equal to 2. And if you divide by 12, you get that x is equal to 1/6 of a foot. And that's equal to, in terms of inches, 2 inches. Choice C. So essentially you distribute the volume and you spread this block out into a thin layer of water that will be placed on top of the original. So in this case, it will be 1/6 of a foot increase in water. So here's the summary for this page. For the next section, you have to compare two different things. So you choose column A, or choose the answer A if the quantity column A is greater, choose B if B is greater, C is if they're equal, and D is if you can't tell based off the information that's given. So for number 1, you have column A, which is 7, or you're given 7x plus 21 is equal to 35. You want to compare 4x plus 12 versus 21. So you want to solve for x. If you subtract 21 on both sides, you get that 7x is equal to 14. You divide by 7, you get that x is equal to 2. Once you know that x is equal to 2, you can substitute this in. This will give you 4 times 2 plus 12, or 8 plus 12, which is equal to 20. And 20 is less than 21, so 21 is greater. So the answer here is B. Next, for number 2, you want to compare negative 2 raised to the 88th power versus negative 2 raised to the 97th power. Now, you don't actually have to find the actual number. You just have to remember that when you have a negative number raised to an odd power, the answer will always be negative. Whereas when you have a negative number raised to an even power, because you have an even number of negative factors, they'll cancel out, all the negative signs will cancel out, and this will always be positive. So in this case, 88 is even, so column A is positive, it's greater than 0. Whereas because 97 is odd, column B will be negative. It's further away from 0. So the answer here will be A. Next, for number 3, you have y is between negative 5 and positive 5. And you want to compare negative y to 6. So here, if you know that y is greater than negative 5, y could be equal to negative 4.999, for example. And when you negate that, that would be negative of negative 4.999, which will be positive 4.999. Either way, column A will always be less than column B. Column B has a value of 6, will always be larger than column A in this case, even though you don't know exactly what the actual value is. No matter what the value for y is, column B will always be greater. Next, for number 4, triangle RST is scalene, and I want to compare the length of the altitude to side RT versus the length of side SR. So you want to draw a scalene triangle, and remember, scaling means that 3 sides are different. So if you have triangle RST, in this case, you want to compare the altitude to the side RT, which would be the height. This is the altitude, versus side SR. So in this case, based on the triangle that you drew, SR is the hypotenuse, and the altitude is on the legs of this right triangle. So in this case, the hypotenuse is longer. However, that's not the only triangle that you can draw. You can have SR, for example, as the base. So in this case, the altitude to the side RT versus side SR. If you draw it this way for number 4, matter which way you draw it, the SR will always be the hypotenuse. So in this triangle, you can have RS over here and T over here. You can kind of make RS a little bit shorter, but the altitude to side RT will always be shorter than the altitude, which will still be another leg, and RS will again be the hypotenuse. So no matter what, the altitude to side RT will always be shorter than the hypotenuse, even though you don't know what the actual lengths are. So the side will always be greater than the altitude. That is always going to be inside the triangle. So for number 4, it's going to be choice B. Next, for number 5, you have A minus B is equal to 5. Then A plus B is equal to negative 1. Here you can solve for the system of equations. You can solve for this because it's set up to do an elimination. If you just add the equations together, negative b and positive b cancels out. You get 2a is equal to 4. And you divide by 2, you get that a is equal to 2. And you can solve by substituting in for b. If a minus b is equal to 5 and a is equal to 2, you get 2 minus b is equal to 5, which means that b has to be equal to negative 3. So here a is positive. That's always going to be greater than a negative number. Next, for number 6, you have m is an integer that's greater than 0, and then y is between 0 and 1. So y is a positive fraction. And m is an integer, so it's a whole number, and is greater than 1. So when you take m as a whole number and you divide by a small positive fraction, this will cause the fraction to be even greater than m. And you can test it out by substituting in random numbers. If you make m equal to, let's say, 2, for example, and y equals to 1/2. When you do 2 divided by 1/2 for column A, that's really 2 times 2 over 1, so that's going to be 4, which is always going to be greater than the original m value of 2. So the answer here is A. Next, for number 7, negative 1/3 y is equal to 1/3 y. And you want to compare negative y to negative 2/3. So here, notice that when you have 1/3 y is equal to negative 1/3 y, if you multiply both sides by 3, you get that negative y is equal to y. And the only way that's even possible is if y is equal to 0. So y is equal to 0, negative 0 is just 0, and 0 is always greater than this negative number. So the answer for 7, again, is A. You know that y is equal to 0, and column B is negative. Next, for number 8, you have this line segment, and you want to compare the length of BD to 8. So you know that A to D is 24, and then A to C is 16. So that means that C to D is 8. It's 24, it's just 24 minus 16. Now, I don't know where B lies, but B is somewhere to the left of C. So if C to D is already equal to 8, when you have B to D, that's going to be 8 plus some other distance here, which you can call A. And 8 plus A, where A has to be a positive distance, has to be a positive number. This is always going to be greater than 8. So the answer for 8 is A. Next, for number 9, you have an equilateral triangle ABC and square BCDE, which have side BC in common, and C is the center of the circle. So here you know that all these sides are equal, and C is the center of the circle. You know that a square has an angle of 90 degrees, and an equilateral triangle has an angle of 60 degrees. X will be the leftover angle, the reflex angle, because you have a full circle, which is 360 degrees. 60 plus 90 is already 150, so 360 minus 150 will give you 210, and that's equal to X. And that's greater than 200, so 9 is equal to A as well. So here's a summary for this page. Next, for number 16, if AB is equal to 40 and A divided by B is equal to 5 over 2, and AB are positive numbers, find value of A. So what you can do here is cross multiply. You have two fractions and they're equal to one another. You should always cross multiply. That gives you 2A is equal to 5B. And if you divide by 2, you get that A has to be equal to 5 over 2B, or 2.5B. So then you could do a substitution here. Because A is 2.5B, because you want to find A, rather isolate B. B will be equal to 2/5 of A. You'll take this and substitute in for B. And instead of A times B is equal to 40, you have now A times 2/5 of A is equal to 40. Or 2/5 of A squared is equal to 40. And I can solve by multiplying by the reciprocal 5/2 on both sides. And get that A squared is equal to 100. And since they're both positive numbers, A could be positive 10 or negative 10. But because you're told they're positive, you eliminate negative 10. So A has to be positive 10, which means B has to be positive 4. You can double check your work by doing A divided by B. That's equal to 10 over 4, which is 5 over 2. So everything does check out. So again, the answer here is A equals 10. Next, number 17, Stephanie earns X dollars while working 10 hours. Evelyn earned Y dollars while working 20 hours. They both earned the same hourly wage, and X plus Y is equal to 60. How many dollars did Stephanie earn? So Stephanie earned X dollars for 10 hours. And we don't know what the rate is, so we can call the rate R. 10 times R will be equal to X. For Evelyn, you have 20 times R, and that's equal to Y. Now you know that X plus Y has to be equal to 60. And you can do a substitution. Instead of X, replace it with 10R. Instead of Y, you can replace with 20R. So you do two substitutions here to solve the system of equations. And when you combine like terms, you get 30R is equal to 60. Divide by 30 on both sides, you get that R is equal to 2. So they'll earn $2 an hour. Now, once you know they earn $2 an hour, for Stephanie, that'll be 10 times 2, or $20. And that's how much money Stephanie earned. So the answer here is 20. Now you can check your work by checking Steve's or Eve's or Evelyn's rate, and that would be 10 times, not 10, 20 times 2, and that is $40. And 20 plus 40 is equal to 60. So everything does check out. Next, for number 18, in the figure above, M is parallel to L and P is perpendicular to N. Find the value of A plus B plus C. So here, you know that A and B, you don't know what they are, but because they are adjacent angles, A plus B are supplementary. They add up to 180 degrees. And that's because since M and L are parallel, this angle A is the same as this angle here. You have corresponding angles. And the corresponding angles are congruent. So in this case, they're both equal to A. And that means that A and B will be supplementary because now they form a straight line. So now they're supplementary. C, on the other hand, is also the C and this 90 degree are supplementary, so this has to be 90 degrees as well. So you just have 180 plus 90 or 270 degrees. Next, for number 19, the difference of the areas of two circles is 21 pi. If the radii are r plus 3 and r, find the radius of the larger circle. So here I have to use the formula for the area of a circle is pi r squared. So the small circle has area equal to pi r squared. The large circle has the area equal to pi times r plus 3 squared, and here you have to expand r plus 3 times r plus 3, and that would be r squared plus 3r plus 3r plus 9 when you do foiling, or r squared plus 6r plus 9, and you're multiplying this by pi. And this subtracted by, this is 21 pi. So r squared plus 6r plus 9 pi minus pi times r squared is equal to 21 pi. So here, the r squares will cancel out. So that means that 6r plus 9 will have to be 21. Or 6r, if you subtract 9 from both sides, is equal to 12. So the r is equal to 2. So that's for the small circle. For the large circle, the radius will be plus 3 or 5. And you can check your work. You can do pi times 5 squared, that's 25 pi. While pi times 2 squared is 4 pi. And 25 pi minus 4 pi is 21 pi. That's the difference of 21 pi here. Next, for number 20, the results of 2 games involving 3 teams are shown above. As we have the following standings, A and B both have 12 points. C has 4 points, and assuming no ties, what's the least number of additional games that Team C will have to play in order to have the highest total score? So for event 1, A got 8 points, and then for event number 2, A got 4. So A has 8 plus 4. Team B has 4 plus 8. And Team C has just 2 plus 2. So in order for C to have the highest score, what you want to do is want to keep putting Team C first with 8 points. But the other 2 teams will then have to be second or third place. So Team A can get 4 points. Team B can get 2 points. So this will be round 3. And after round 3, you have 16, 14, and 12. Then you want to go to round 4, where again, Team C gets another 8 points. And this time, you can make Team B be in second place, so you add 4 there. And then Team A, you'll put in third place. This will be round 4. And the totals after round 4 will be 18, 18, and 20. Now here, Team C will have the highest after round 4, but you have to assume no ties. So if there are no ties, that means you have to go one more round, in which Team C will get another 8 points. This will be round 5. And one of them will gain 4, one of them will gain 2, which will be 28, 20, and 22, which Team C definitively wins without a tie. So you will actually need a total of 5 games. Assuming no ties here. So in terms of the additional games, you can either, depending on how this question is written, they will win after round 4. So 2 games for Team C to win. But there is a tie for the other place. So assuming if there are no ties, then it would really be 3 games for no ties. So this question is written kind of weird, but those would be the answers here. Again, you just have to make a chart in order to solve this question. Next, for number 21, in the figure above, were drawn to scale and all the line segments were extended definitely in both directions. How many intersection points would there be in addition to N and M? So here you just have to figure out how many of these would be intersected. Now when you add the angles together, this is 6x, whereas this is 7x total. So L doesn't actually look like this. L and M would actually be the same angle here, because this would be 6x. So if you extend them definitely, you'll definitely have this point. You made this isosceles triangle. And then if you continue, you'll have another intersection point here. So then L actually goes here. And you have another point here. So in this case, you will have 3 more intersection points. Now, you have to assume that x is equal to 15. So if you replace x with 15, that would have to be 90. So that will actually change a couple things, because you'll have to have more parallel lines. L and M would be 90 degrees. And that J wouldn't actually point in this direction. Rather, J would actually look, J would actually look like this. And you have 15 degrees here. You have a line there for the other 15, and this would be the 90. So when you extend lines in both directions using x equals 15, you actually don't have 3 points of intersection. You have this point here, and when you extend this line, you actually have this point down here. JN is parallel to LM, so these two lines will actually never meet. You actually only have 2 additional points because you have another set of parallel lines. Next, for number 22, if A is 10% greater than B and AC is 32% greater than BD, then C is what percent greater than D? So A is 10% greater than B, so we can turn this into a number sentence. A would be equal to 10% greater means 1.1 times B. And AC is equal to 1.32 times BD, because it's 32% greater. And here you can replace A with 1.1B. You have 1.1B times C is equal to 1.32 BD. And you replace B with, or actually B, you just leave there. And then from here, you can divide both sides by B. So you get 1.1C is equal to 1.32D. I want to divide by 1.1 on both sides. So you get that C is equal to 132. So you move it over 2 times. This is 132D over 110. And here you can divide both the numerator and the denominator by 11. And 132 divided by 11 is 12. So then you have 12 over 10, or 1.2D. So this means that C is 20% greater than D. So in this case, it's 20. When you turn the percentage into or the decimal into a percentage. Next, for number 32, since 1 gross is equal to 12 dozen, what fraction of gross of eggs is 3 eggs? So 1 gross is 12 dozens, which remember is 12 times 12, because a dozen is 12. So here the part is 3 eggs, and a whole is equal to 1 gross, or 12 times 12, or 144 eggs. So this is 3 over 144. If you divide by 3, you get 1 over 48. The fraction is 1 over 48. Next, for number 24, this figure above represents a layer of bricks, where each brick has a volume of 40 cubic inches. If all the bricks are stacked in layers as shown, and the final pile of bricks occupies 8,000 cubic inches, how many layers are there in the final pile of bricks? So each brick has a volume of 40, and here you see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So the volume here will be 40 times 5 times 8, which will be 48 times 40, or 1,600. Now you have the entire pile is 8,000, and 8,000 divided by 1,600 is just equal to 5. So there'll be 5 of these tall. There'll be 5 stacks of this, because each one will be 1,600, and 1,600 times 5 will be equal to 8,000. So the answer here is just 5. Next for number 25, let x be the smallest possible three-digit number greater than or equal to 100 in which no digit is repeated. And if y is the largest positive three-digit number that can be made by using all the digits of x, what's the value of y minus x? So x has to be the smallest three-digit number where no digit is repeated. So that would be 102. And then for y is the largest, so just put it backwards as 210. So 210 subtract 102 will be equal to, here you have to borrow, and this would be 108. So y minus x will be 108. Right, and here is the summary for this page. All right, thank you everyone for joining me today. Enjoy the rest of your day, and I'll talk to you guys in the next one. All right, bye everyone.